Well, it's really nice to get to be here and have a chance to look at these Arthurian Legend cards. And I had just a wonderful time getting to work on this set with the team. Obviously, tons of people worked on this. I had, I would say, a relatively small role in this, but it was a really nice opportunity that Simon and Chase said to me back at Quarters and Cup, "Hey, Ira, you want to take a look at the cards? We got them." And I said, yes, I would really like to look at them. So I had not actually seen the cover of this. Obviously, this is very different than the alpha and beta binder. Wow, I love that. Yeah, this is good. So that's fun. All right, let's take a look. I am excited. So we're looking at them now. I'm looking at them now, and I'm just going to talk. I'll just mention a few things as I look through them. So one thing, I think Erik might have mentioned magic missiles, but I just think that it's worth telling the story, which is that he told me the original Firebolt, which is the fire spell that does this same effect, was originally going to be in air, but because he got the card art that matched fire so much better, he shifted it into fire. And so now we're getting the original design intent of magic missiles in Arthurian Legends. And I think it just shows the level of attention to art that Erik and the whole team puts into the game. So I think it's just nice to see it now. And yeah, that's a little story about that one. So what cards can I talk about here? Oh, Feast for Crows. So I'll mention a few cards that during development caught my eye and I commented on. There were tons of playtesters who contributed also, so this is definitely not just me. But I do remember Feast of Crows being costed quite low, and I don't remember if it had a lower threshold at any point, but this has increased in cost since I last saw it. So I think this is a very exciting card and will have a significant impact on tournament play. And especially when you know the meta and you can know what you can predict, what your opponents will be playing. And also I think it's interesting in situations where you play in tournaments with open or closed deck lists, because the power of Feast for Crows could really matter if it's an open deck list tournament or a closed deck list tournament. So that's interesting. And another card that I'll call out is Merlin. So one of the things that we are careful of in development is, you know, it's my job when I was working as developer on this to call out cards and text that I thought was, you know, maybe questionable or could possibly be improved. And you might notice that Merlin says, Merlin may look at your next spell. And, you know, it's actually the player who's going to be looking at the card, but it says Merlin on the card. And I remember talking about that with Erik and saying, hey, maybe we should have the player on that card. And this was, I think, just very intentionally chosen. And so I think it tells a much better story for Merlin to be on the card text and not the player, because everybody can figure out what you're supposed to do anyway. And so I think in situations where the card text is confusing when it's like ambiguous in some way, then it's worth maybe changing. But in this situation, there's nothing confusing about it. You know what you're supposed to do. And maybe there'll be an FAQ on it at some point, but it's still clear. So another card that caught my eye just looking through it now is Valor. So I remember this had a variety of different balance, power levels, and one of the things that I think is really clear in the text right now is exactly when you can use it. I think earlier versions were maybe a little not quite as clear exactly on the timing, and I think this current text is really excellent, because it just makes it very precise when exactly you can cast this spell. And it's exciting to have another zero cost spell that you can cast on your opponent's turn. So that's a fun one that I just wanted to call out. Oh, and Stone Rain. Stone Rain is a really interesting direct damage effect for Earth in a, lower cost than Craterize. And it's, I just think, a great theme that it keeps the focus on sites. Obviously, Earth has some focus on sites, and being able to focus the player, even though it's doing damage, which is something that might happen in other elements, this is something that's happening in Earth. And I recall just obviously multiple people play tested. This wasn't just me, but I remember thinking the original design, I think, did not do damage. The original design only did damage equal to the number of sites, and now this does damage equal to the number of sites in your hand plus 1. So, one of the things that we work on during development is game balance, but obviously so much of this is so thematic and so evocative that the designs really match the art and the theme and all of that. All right, let me see if there's something else that I might want to call out. I'm excited. This is just a card I'm going to mention. I didn't really have anything to do with this card, but the Sly Fox. I'm really excited for somebody to build a Sly Fox deck where it just attacks with stealth every turn and gets powered up with like Excalibur or some giant sword and bunch of weapons. And it's just an awesome Sly Fox. It's attacking with stealth all the time. That's going to be really fun. Snowball. My gosh. So Snowball, I think, is one of the cards that went through the most power revisions. And I know the team talked so much about the balance of water in Arthurian Legends, and obviously the balance of everything, but water definitely got a lot of attention because in alpha and beta, water is generally perceived to be slightly weaker. And so there was really a thoughtful intention with water in Arthurian Legends. And Snowball was originally costed at 2, at 2 mana. And it slowly crept up to 3 to 4, and then I think eventually 5. And I think this is still an incredibly powerful effect at 5. It's an amazing finisher. It can wipe the whole board, and the art is just amazing. You can really tell the story of a bunch of minions and actually units, right? Because it works for avatars as well. So that's a really fun one. Salmon of Knowledge, this is an interesting one, and I think it was originally balanced at maybe 16 plus. I don't know if it was always 14 plus. I might be thinking of a different card, but that's an interesting one. I think there are going to be some people who enjoy the randomness of that. Let's see what else I can find, see if there are good stories to tell. The unique, obviously there are tons of unique mortals, and I won't go into too many details on those, but there were some that I commented on for balance. I think, I don't remember to what extent I commented on Sermorian, but I just want to call out now this enemy projectiles can't enter here. I don't know exactly that was the original text, but the team really thought carefully about projectiles and the effect of projectiles. Obviously, Grapple Shot is a card that was very significant in alpha and beta, and that shoots a projectile. So there are a lot of projectiles in the game, and I think the thoughtfulness with which the team approached the design of these cards, both thematically, artistically, but also mechanically, I think really shows through. So I'm excited for players to get to play with these cards and see them in effect, and to be able to revisit the cards in alpha and beta that now have totally different relevance to the meta based on the cards in Arthurian Legends. So those sorts of cross-set interactions are fun to see. So what else can I talk about? Excalibur obviously is going to get a lot of attention, but I just wanted to call out that one of the first things I thought of when I saw Excalibur was not the cards in Arthurian Legends, but the Azure Ridge Caravan back in Alpha and Beta, which is not really played ever. I mean, maybe in Draft you might play that, but now with Excalibur, they're like holding this sword and they don't even maybe they realize what it is, but now they're carrying around this incredible sword in the Caravan. So that's pretty fun. I remember when we were working on 13 Treasures of Britain, this the teleporting and the picking up and the dropping, the rules around picking up and dropping artifacts were still a little bit in flux. And so the fact that each unit once per turn can pick up artifacts and can drop artifacts is really very clear in the rulebook, and at this point has been for a long time. But the dependence of having a really clear rulebook allows the designers to design cards that can function in really interesting ways. And so if we were not very clear about the way pick up and drop worked, then 13 Treasures of Britain could be completely crazy. What else can I talk about? Some of the sites. Obviously, there are tons of exciting sites. I remember myself and, I'm sure many other playtesters commenting on the sites that require 3 threshold to trigger. Like Merlin's Tower. I remember at some point I looked at the set, and obviously all of these cards are going through many revisions during the course of design and development. So I'm just mentioning a few snapshots. I don't please keep in mind, so many revisions, very small part of it for me. I was just a small part of it. But I do remember on Merlin's Tower, there was some point that I looked at Merlin's Tower and it only required 2 threshold or something like that. And obviously it's an extremely powerful effect to get 3 mana. So it's really cool. It's a really cool card. And it's a super tower. It's really in theme with the other towers. It's Merlin's Tower, so you get 3 mana, not just 1 mana. And anyway, I think it's going to be very powerful and played even with 3 air threshold. But I think one of the things that this set is doing in a really interesting way is both pushing the mono element to be possible, because the overall card pool is now bigger. You can play mono element decks in a way that was just a little more difficult in alpha and beta, and also providing real interesting tension with maybe you want to go multi-element, because all of these unique mortals and all of the knights and things like that are these multi-element cards. So I really like seeing these cards that give a real reward for going single element, like Merlin's Tower, or even just limiting yourself to 2 elements to be able to trigger Merlin's Tower. So maybe we'll talk briefly about Witch. This was a card that had a lot of discussion in the team, went through a bunch of revisions, and it will be really interesting to see where the Witch ends up in the meta. I'm super excited to see what players do with it. And I remember when I looked at this first, I was like, this is way too complicated. There's so much going on with this avatar. And I argued for it to be simpler. And I think one of the things that the team does really well, and that Erik does well, is clarity of vision. And I think when you look at this card and you look at the curse, I think I had I had suggested a simpler effect where it was more parallel to Sorcerer, that you cursed a minion, then if it maybe got -1 power, and then if it died this turn, you got to draw a card. And so it was basically like Sorcerer-esque, because you would I think it was maybe draw a spell. And obviously the team didn't go with that. And I think one of the things that leads to a really strong set and strong design is a opportunity to talk within the team, have a bunch of ideas, play test it, and get feedback from the play testers, and then end up with a design that is a collaborative effort. And so I think maybe I was the one who might have said, or somebody, I don't know, maybe it was me, maybe it was somebody else, mentioned the -3 power, because there were some thoughts around Battle Mage, there were some thoughts around Avatar of Earth, where we wanted to have an avatar that could counterplay against that. And so this is, not what I suggested exactly, but it was a combination of a bunch of ideas. So I think it's fun to see it now. I'm excited to see what players do with it. So I think maybe that's a good place to end. Obviously there are tons of new things to explore in Arthurian Legends, and I can't wait to get to play it in person with people and on TTS for anybody in the league. And I just want to say thank you to Erik's Curiosa team for giving me a chance to speak about this, because I did work as a developer on this set, and it was a real pleasure to get to work with the team. And so I'm excited to get to talk about this now and see these now early. So best wishes, and thanks so much.